Hello, my name is Sheridan Ruth, and welcome back or welcome to my channel where we talk all about self-love, acceptance, empowerment, resilience, whether that be for your hair, for your hair loss, for your body, for your personality, for yourself or your higher self. And today we're going to be talking about something that I have kind of made a lot of mistakes around, and something that affects every single person in their entire life. And the way that you relate to this specific thing is going to change how much you grow and how much joy and groundedness and ease you can have in your life. We're talking about resistance and self-sabotage. Resistance is something that actually proves to you that your brain is doing its job. And self-sabotage is what happens when you don't address resistance in the most empowering way. So let's get right into it. I'm going to tell you a little story about my own resistance, and hopefully, well, the idea here is that I can trial and error things out, and then I can share what I've learned from my own mistakes or lessons. So one of the biggest things that I've done during my life was to notice resistance. And I have an incredible willpower. When I say that something is going to get done, it's going to get done. And I use this willpower to bulldoze this resistance and to just like push through, to keep going to a job that I didn't like because I said that I would, and I noticed resistance. And I was like, yep, I'm going to keep going. To stay in relationships where I knew that I shouldn't have, but I'd made a commitment, so I kept going. To bulldozing my own inner experience, noticing like dis-ease or anxiety, or just, we'll talk about how resistance can show up in a second. I won't ruin that. But I noticed this resistance, and my pattern was to just bulldoze it and just keep going and try to willpower it out. And I'm sure that you have been here, and this often leads to almost like a shaming voice, or like an inner critic inside saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Oh, you should be doing this instead. This isn't how it's supposed to look like. Look at that person. They did it this way. This also looks like the critic to the externals. We'll get into that in a sec. So what I found myself doing was trying to bulldoze the resistance that I found inside of me in order to get to the place that I wanted to be. And this doesn't work, or if it works, it only works for a short period of time. Being really specific, I had an experience literally last week, and I was working with a client, and there was a lot of resistance around actually loving herself, like liking herself and then loving herself. And she had this inner critic inside, and it was kept saying, this work doesn't matter. This coaching isn't going to work. I need to have anxiety. I need to make sure everything is perfect. And it kept running her around, and even telling her that the work we were doing together was just a bad idea and we should just stop. And I noticed this resistance in her. And what we did was we looked a little bit deeper, and we found that this story, or this kind of like, I'm thinking of like a merry-go-round of thoughts. This merry-go-round of thoughts was protecting her from the sadness that she had felt when her parents divorced when she was 8 years old. So this part of her that refused to love herself had actually just developed to protect herself from this big sadness from a divorce that she thought never really affected her, and it had affected her. And this sadness was really big and really uncomfortable. So it really made sense for this resistance to come up, this resistance to self-love, because in her inner experience, self-love meant that she needed to grieve her parents' divorce. That was the unique path that her brain needed to take. Maybe because when this divorce happened, her self-love diminished. Maybe that is true for you to some degree. Maybe it's something completely different. But the point that I want to make here is that often resistance comes up when we are that close to healing or to addressing or to bringing awareness to the thing that is stopping us from living the life that we want to live. And resistance, the louder it gets, the closer we are. Resistance will often show up regarding the thing that you most need. If you have a lot of resistance to doing yin yoga or slow yoga, chances are you really need it because you've been living a fast-paced life, or you do a lot of dynamic exercise and you need to calm down, like calm the nervous system. If you have a lot of resistance to reading a self-help book, maybe it's because there's something in there that you really need. And your brain is going to place this resistance in your path because the brain's job is to expend the least amount of energy possible, stay in the known, and that includes staying in familiar discomfort. The brain, like the limbic system of the brain, will always prioritize familiar discomfort over the possibility of more comfort in the future. Because when we're looking at the way that the brain is structured, survival is its number one priority. And when we're talking about survival, the unknown, even though it's full of wonderful possibilities, is dangerous. So it wants to keep you in the status quo, even if that's not healthy for you. It wants to keep you as you are because it can say, well, we're not dead. So we're not dead, which means that I'm doing my job. And I don't want to let us go into the unknown because I don't know what will happen there. And my job is to keep you alive. And right now we are alive. So I'm doing my job. So let's stay here. It also wants to expend the least amount of energy possible. Which means that like healing or improving yourself or doing something different takes energy. It takes your energy right now to be watching this. It takes my energy right now to be creating this. So I felt resistance. I was meant to film this video on Tuesday, but my brain was like, let's do something else. It's Friday and I'm filming it. That was my own resistance because my brain wants me to not expend energy, and that's normal and natural. So if you notice resistance, please know that it's your brain doing its job. But you are not your brain, you are not your thoughts. So resistance can show up in so many different ways. It can show up once again in the merry-go-round of stories and thoughts that we may have. It can show up as anxiety and like feeling an anxiety inside of you and like tightness in your chest, like heart beating faster type thing. It can show up in criticism of yourself and of others. So if you are watching a class and you're finding yourself criticizing the person who is giving the class or writing the book, reading the book, doing the workshop, doing anything at all, if you find yourself criticizing them, that's usually a sign that your brain doesn't want to expend the energy and be in the unknown of your body and would much rather fixate on something else, which is familiar. Criticism is familiar. Criticizing other people is familiar. It doesn't require much energy. So we'll criticize, or we'll criticize ourselves because once again, familiar, it doesn't require much energy, so that we can avoid being with that which is going to cause a new possibility for us. That which is going to require energy because we're healing is energy. And if we heal, if something really changes in our inner world, then our outer world is going to change, which is what we want. But our brain says, oh, I don't know about this. So it criticizes, it procrastinates, it will create protecting parts of you. So that is the inner critic. Sometimes that means a part of you will come up that's really angry. Maybe you'll feel angry. Maybe you feel sad. there can be a lot of superiority sometimes. So like, it's a heightened sense of ego. I am better than, which is the flip side as well of criticism of other people, but like feeling like, oh, I would do this better. I would do this better. That keeps you, once again, out of the actual embodied experience. It keeps you in stories. It keeps you away from change. What would happen if you were to release or not pay attention to the thoughts of, I am better, I am not enough, this I can do later on, I shouldn't even stop and try? What would happen if you were to let them go and allow yourself to have an embodied experience of whatever it is you're experiencing, whether it be the coaching lesson, the yoga class, the reading, the book, anything at all, and have that embodied experience? Something inside will change for you. So it makes sense that a part of you is scared about that, because it could be really, really wonderful. And it's probably what you're looking for. It makes sense. The thing is, our natural state is one of integration. It is one of security, safety, healing, wholeness. It's just that the mind plays little games with us. The thoughts run away. Mind is a tool. And so it wants to drive the bus, but that's not its actual purpose. It's not its job. We can talk about that in another video. But the mind will give you all of these thoughts and all of these stories. When we move past that, then the natural result is one of safety, security, integration, wholeness, peace, resilience, confidence, clarity, empathy, compassion. All of those heart-centered traits that you have as a soul, as a human. So what do we do? How do we do that? You guys know that I really, really like giving you like tangible things that you can take away. So these are my 2 tips for working with resistance. Tip number 1 is to identify the payoff of engaging in this resistance and find another way of meeting it. So if I notice that I'm in a class and I'm criticizing myself about how I'm showing up, I'm feeling really self-conscious in the class, right? This is the resistance. This is how resistance is showing up for me right now. What's the payoff of that? The payoff might be, I get to not be in this class. I get to kind of be in my head. I get to not deal with the physical like sensation that's in my back right now, or I get to avoid a feeling or an emotion, or I get to feel a little bit safer. And then notice if you can find another way to meet it. So if you notice that like maybe you're just not feeling super, super safe, well, what could you do right now that would help you feel more safe? Do you want to exhale a little bit longer? Do you want to light a candle? Do you want to close the door? Do you want to turn your camera off if you're in a Zoom call? Do you want to take a break for 2 minutes and then come back? Do you want to enlist support? Ask for support in this. Say, this is really hard. I'm noticing a lot of resistance. A lot of the time, if we kind of name the resistance, we actually end up taking away some of the power that it has. This is why in almost every single workshop you'll ever do with me, or even in my one-on-one coaching calls, I'll name the resistance. I'll be like, yeah, there's resistance here. Who wants to name some resistance? Who has resistance to this exercise? Can we name it, to tame it, and then continue? Tip number 2 is that you'll notice that I mentioned that you might be feeling resistance because if you were, the payoff to engaging in the resistance is often that you get to avoid an emotion. So if I have a lot of sadness inside of me and thinking about the story around this class or how I would do it better or planning what I'm making for dinner, helps me avoid that sadness, then my tip for you, if that is your case, whether this is sadness, disgust, shame is a really, really big one, fear, whatever that is, whatever emotion is being protected by your resistance, can you practice feeling that emotion? So if it's sadness, can you allow yourself to feel a little bit sad in little moments during the day? Maybe that means that you look outside and you notice that the sun is going down. You might go, oh, that's sad. I'm not quite ready for that. Maybe it means that you're watching Netflix and something happens. You go, oh, yeah, that actually is kind of sad. I'm sad about that. Maybe it means that you create a sadness ritual and you take 15 minutes to cry. Maybe you put on a sad song and you allow yourself 3.5 minutes to be sad. Whatever that is, whether that is anger, shame, sadness, fear, frustration, disgust, can you allow yourself to get better and expand your capacity to feel that emotion? When you do that, naturally your resistance to avoiding it will lower because that emotion doesn't hold quite as much urge or energy or potency. That is it. I would actually love to know how you manage resistance and how that looks for you. So what is your unique way that you sabotage yourself, or how do you notice resistance in your life? Let me know in the comments. Let's name it so that we can tame it. And of course, please subscribe, leave a comment, like it, so that I know that you're enjoying these videos. That helps me know what to make more of.